Welcome. Excited to have you with us today. My name is Adam Hood, and I am here to host a panel with some esteemed colleagues here on generative AI and the SDLC. So let me introduce our panel here of esteemed colleagues. Jake Wilson. Jake leads our PwC Labs team. He is your AI factory leader, so excited about that. Well, I'll let you tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, right. So partner in our products and technology group at PwC, I lead our AI factory, which is focused on how we use generative AI to transform the way we work as professionals at PwC. So that cuts across our tax, our audit, and our consulting businesses.
Awesome. And while we're at it, if you were a part of the SDLC, what part would you be?
Using Gen AI to build Gen AI.
Perfect. We'll unpack the phases here in just a second. Osama Bagili, leader of our application modernization capabilities within our engineering team. Same thing, tell us a little bit relative to the topic and what phase you might be in this journey.
Sure, so thanks for the opportunity. Hey everyone, we hope you have a good session with us here today. And frankly, what I do is I lead engineering teams at scale within PwC. We believe that there's a lot of opportunity in the market, especially around the talent piece where there's a talent crunch and a lot of upskilling that's required. And the design thinking of how we can use Gen AI to jumpstart how we engage with our clients in the market to bring them value over cost faster. So I'm excited to be here today and talk to you about this.
All right, Scott, welcome. Excited to have you here with us. Scott, you lead our engineering capability all up, so you're right in the thick of this topic. So same question, a little bit more about what you do here on the team and what phase of the SDLC would you be?
I love the SDLC question.
You got it.
Phase of the SDLC question. I lead our engineering teams in PwC. We have a global engineering footprint, so not just application development, but also cloud migrations, modernizations, data platforms, data engineering, integration platforms, and all other kinds of engineering that our clients might need to help make their businesses successful. So I'm responsible for standing up that team, making sure that our people have a career path in engineering at PwC, making sure that we have a good methodology and process for delivering the different kinds of services that we provide. So that's my gig. And in the SDLC, I would probably want to live in the build phase, but I really like the performance engineering part of the build phase, and I think that's a great place to be, and I'm interested to see the role that generative AI ends up playing in performance tuning and making applications sing.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to have you guys here. You represent a breadth of our business, and you're living and breathing this space every day with our teams. So just to kind of summarize, Jake, building these solutions for our teams, bringing these capabilities to life from a technical perspective. Osama, you're right there with our clients, both using the tools and helping them think about how they want to use the tools. And Scott, it's important, our teams know how to use this stuff at scale. And so our capabilities on behalf of our clients and our teams are really important. So thank you for taking the time to be with us. Just to maybe set the stage for how we're putting a bit of a framework around today's conversation. This is how we think about the SDLC broadly. There's a lot of different frameworks that can be used. 5 phases, 6 phases, 4 phases. In this case, we kept it simple just because of the topic. So ideation phase really being that coming up with that initial product idea. What is that product definition? The planning phase is where a lot of us spend time, whether it's taking that definition and unpacking that down into the epics and stories, and do we have the right teams, and are they operating at the right scale with the right methodologies? And then build is when the engineers come online, right? This is when the Agile cycle gets going. And then lastly is operate, right? Where we're making sure everything's running and that we're continuing to refine the solution. We've got some of our research here alongside that, just to frame the conversation, where does the time break down? Where is the level of effort for each of these phases? I don't think any of this is going to be revolutionary for you guys. You're pretty plugged in here, but I'll ask at some point maybe if this resonates with you. And then our research around where Gen AI has the opportunity for the largest impact, right? We think operate is actually one of the places we can drive a lot of efficiency, but I think we're going to have some conversation today that we'll get to hear more about where you think some of that might live. I think most of our clients automatically go to the build phase. And as builders, we tend to spend a lot of time there as well.
Yes.
All right. Well, then let's just jump right in, shall we? I think, Jake, you made the mistake of sitting here close to me.
I know.
So you get to go first, my friend. So let's just start at the beginning, right? Anyone who's even Googled Gen AI and software development has probably read the extreme perspectives, including like prompt engineering is the new data science, or the fact that software development careers as a whole might go away. I'm really starting you off with the softballs, aren't I?
Yes,
it's
you
like
are.
it's
Yes.
the good one. But given your role and kind of what you're seeing, I just have to ask, like, the talent you need on your team. Tell us a little bit about how you're thinking about the skills, the talent, the team, as this starts to become real for us.
Yeah, it's interesting because a number of years ago, before AI was cool, I led our AI lab internally, which was scaling AI for the enterprise with traditional NLP, machine learning. And it's been interesting to see kind of the evolution of the skills and kind of what you need to roll out AI solutions at scale with traditional machine learning versus now with generative AI. When all the hype started, I think 1 year ago today, actually, with ChatGPT, I think it's ChatGPT's first birthday. So I think when all that hype started, it was like, the transformer architecture came out in 2017 through Google Research and all that. And then, it wasn't really kind of hit mainstream until, you get this chat interface with a prompt window. And then it's like, okay, how do we get value out of this? Like, seems like a lot of opportunity. So we literally had a call, I think on a Friday night, said we're going to stand up an AI factory. We organized, I think roughly like a little over 100 people in 2 different locations to really just get hands-on keyboard. And at that time, coming to your question around like what skills, like we didn't know at that time. It was just like, yeah, we know some things around machine learning. We know about the transformer architecture. We've been doing, things with large language models. But it's like, how do you really democratize this, and how do you really get this, rolled out to the enterprise? So as part of that, we're like, okay, so prompt engineering, yes, that is a thing that you need. Are there prompt engineers laying around on the streets that you can go hire? No. So what is it that you need to drive good prompt engineering? And kind of going through that, experimentation, like it's always hit or miss, whether it's, someone coming from a business domain area, someone coming from an engineering background. Not everyone's good at prompting. But data scientists.
I'm not good at prompting, just so you know. I've lots of practice, really bad at it. It's
right.
Proof that not everyone's good at it.
Yeah, you got to know how the a little bit about the model, the natural language that kind of defines the model. So it was interesting because it's like, okay, we're going to try and upskill these people as prompt engineers. Like, we're going to have like a world-class prompt engineering team. We just kept defaulting back to data scientists to really help get more detailed instructions for the LLMs, which is kind of really what you need. And then so we started to uncover these different patterns, and before RAG was called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, we noticed again too, like providing enough data as context to the large language model. And so that kind of changed your data engineers from doing traditional kind of scaling of data pipelines for training machine learning models and supervised machine learning. Now they're focused on how do I chunk? How do we do all this knowledge embedding data? How do I load this into a vector search database? How do I enable keyword search on top of that for like a hybrid search? And so you see the data engineering skills evolve along that journey. And then with the software engineers, it's like how do I continue to create architectures and frameworks to really build, deploy, and scale this out? Where you've got tens of thousands of concurrent users hitting the system. And so in that case too, when we jump into kind of like, I don't think it's replacing skills, it's an evolution of skills, if you can kind of see where I'm going with all that. In terms of, again, just different tools that people are using in day-to-day development, different skills that you need to acquire, and using these new technologies to do it effectively and at scale.
Building builders. That's what
Building builders.
Building builders of a new kind.
That's right.
That's pretty awesome. Maybe, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit there. So, because there's the abstraction around prompt engineering too. So as those models get better, it's like a lot of what we need to train on these days is going to also continue evolving and rapidly. So So I do believe that the abstraction around those concepts of what's working to kind of train us to understand what's under the hood in terms of prompt engineering, how that works, is still going to get better at it. The natural language processing aspect of understanding what we say and what we mean is going to improve. And the challenge becomes one of conviction and how do we open up our own minds to similar to what we did during, I mean, I'll go back to the COVID times, right? We had to shift towards being in virtual environments. There was significant amount of increase in our context switching. And at least for myself, and I'm sure you share some of this, I had to think different, right? I had to think of how do I go into these meetings and be able to be my next best self right at the next minute. And I thought that it's going to be horrendous, I'm going to suffer, right? But the thing is, we're also programmable machines in certain ways, and we got just better at that. So now if we take that concept and we apply it on prompt engineering and a lot of what we're learning, the same pattern is going to apply. We just have to be open to thinking that that's possible and take the time incrementally. It doesn't have to be in one shot. But my recommendation is take the time incrementally to try 2 to 3 prompts a week, but also see what the patterns are and how it's understanding what you're looking for better. And that's going to drive the biggest impact in terms of how you plug into that system and evolution of training. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Scott, here's one, just kind of a follow-up question there. Get your thoughts. So as generative AI takes on more and more of the routine task across the development lifecycle, we have to manage our own teams, scheduling, resource allocation, project management, right? Like, how are you thinking about that? You run a lot of really large teams, right? How are you thinking this might have an impact, hopefully in a positive way?
Nice, easy question.
Yeah, softballs, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think to the point about people have to sort of go on this personal evolutionary journey, we're trying to establish teams that have the opportunity to work together, become high performing together. And that's something that I think a team full of people can lead themselves through that journey a little better than an individual can take themselves through that journey. So when we think about how we want to build out engineering teams for the work we do for our clients or the work we do for ourselves, the work we do for various investments that we want to make as a firm, we want those teams to have some level of stability to work around, right? So a stable set of tools that we know are the best-in-class tools that they can work with. We want those teams to be together with a well-formed, multidisciplinary loop of skills and experience. We want them to have geographic diversity, other kinds of diversity, right? Like make sure that you have a team that is cohesive and can form up like pieces of a puzzle kind of fitting together. And I think that model gives us a better chance for people to go on that evolutionary journey. And then what happens is you can, from team to team, you can learn best practices that you want to take and say, hey, this team started doing this and it got magical. Let's scale that out to the other teams, right? So then when we look at how that applies to estimating and planning client work, where we have to get the budget right and like be able to talk about how long it's going to take to get something done, then we can think about like how much faster can our teams get, because they're high performing, not because we enabled them with a bunch of automation and took the human out of the loop, not because of that, but because they're a high performing team. They figured out how to do it all together. And the tools are great at helping advance them, and the tools will continue to probably evolve in some crazy ways, but our teams have to evolve as a team. So I think that's the most important aspect of it.
It's funny, when we talk as builders and as a group of engineering leaders, it always comes back to the storming and forming of a good team, of a high-performing team. It's just the tools give it juice, right?
Yeah.
Assam, I'm going to go to you on this one. So this one is really about, as our teams work with our clients, or as our leaders work with our clients around coming up with new ideas for products, the product ideation phase. New ideas are born, they're defined, they're vetted, right? Companies don't want to invest in things before they understand the value, us included, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some of the ways that teams are speeding up the product ideation phase, and what tools do you think they need maybe to move faster?
All right, so the backdrop to how I'm going to think about answering this question is the cross-functional teams that we've built in engineering to do scaled engineering before Gen AI. And what that did is we brought inter-functional skill sets, including the experienced designers specifically, to make sure that we're not missing out on the customer or the user at the end of the day. So now the opportunity with Gen AI and the phases specifically around the ideation piece is the rapid prototyping aspect of it. So now you have all these fantastic vision toolings that if you scribble something, it's going to generate the design for you. And why that's important is it always reminds me of, and I'm not sure if this is going to resonate with you, but the swing set analogy and picture. It's my favorite. I love that simple cartoon. It makes me laugh every time, especially when you see the various designs of a swing set between what these project sponsors imagined the end result to be, to the project managers, to the engineers who highly technically improved on those outcomes, and then through the testing and the outcomes where the end result was not necessarily the swing set that the user wanted. So kind of in thinking through that, right, now the opportunity is to have that iterative rapid prototyping and engaging the users more upfront, more meaningfully with the right amount of feedback and input that would improve on the outcomes that we're delivering for them. So if you think of architecting for cost, right, I believe, and I think, I don't know how many of you heard Dr. Werner's keynote this morning, but this is where we save money, right? It's not when we think of how we get there, it's like when we think of the end in mind and how Gen AI helps us better engage, but also supercharge the pipeline through SDLC to get things done.
As someone who's built many a swing set, I've had results all along that analogy that you used there. Some are as the user desired, some.
You can use Gen AI to design your swing set.
Designing and building, again, two different things. That analogy plays. All right, Scott, this one's for you, sir. I think this one's really relevant to a lot of things we've heard about today and over the course of this week, but AWS Code Whisperer, right? That's been a hot one for us. We're excited about that. Tools like this are taking aim at the developer experience. We've heard a variety of perspectives on the topic of adoption of coding assistance, both internally in our teams and with our clients. So I got two questions. So first, what are the results? What results are you hoping to see from our engineers? What results are you hoping to see from our engineers as they leverage these tools? And then secondly, there's always concerns. Like our clients are good at sharing their concerns about this. But what concerns do you have as someone who's been a builder for a long time?
I think the hopes are probably pretty much in everybody's head already, right? Everybody wants the code to come out faster, have higher quality, have better performance, have better security, be more reliable, right? You really want to get to the point that you know that you're producing the best outcome as fast as possible in code. And of course, anything that helps automate that process is going to hopefully speed those along. That would be a successful outcome. I do think on the risk side, there's a risk that engineers take less responsibility for the code that they own, that they've produced, because they're relying too heavily on the automation. They're relying too heavily on what was generated, and the longer term risk of that is sort of an overall decline in engineering skill sets, right? Like if you get to the point where people have graduated from college and they really actually don't know how to code, they really only know how to prompt engineer code, then you have a problem, right? Because now you don't have anybody who knows how to fix what's wrong. You don't even potentially have anybody who knows how to recognize that what was generated wasn't right. So I think it's really important that while we go through this journey of learning to think new ways, learning to use the new tools, it's really important that we have good fundamentals in core engineering, core software development skill sets. Make sure that people really understand how the computer actually works, right? Like I think sometimes when we talk about cloud, people forget that there's still a CPU in there. There's still bits and bytes on disks and riding around in networks. It's still all there. And it helps a little bit to know how that stuff works so that you can really be sure, are you building a performant, secure, like usable application that actually is top quality, and then try to go faster.
Yeah, I think it's, whether it's Code Whisperer or other tools too, like just watching the adoption with the engineering teams, like you see some pockets of engineers that are excited to adopt, to get in, hands-on, start using, just to help them be more productive, versus like, let's say maybe some of the other train of thought in terms of like No, I'm only good as an engineer if I can start from the ground up and write it from the ground up, right? I know every library, I know this, I know that. So it's been interesting to watch that too, and the little bit of dichotomy between kind of those two pockets. But I will say, like, just in terms of, the folks who are willing to lean in to really use the tools to help, become more productive, like, we're definitely seeing an impact there. And, how rapidly we can get new code created for some of these solutions, or like our generative AI plugins that we're building and rolling out. But also, like, to do the boring stuff too. Like, developers don't like writing unit tests, like, don't like code documentation. So, like,
that never changes.
Right. So and that's a great uptake on those pieces too, for just like where to get started, something simple like the stuff that you hate doing. Use generative AI to help you get started there, and then let the kind of maturity grow from there.
Yeah, maybe to chime in here as well, and I'd love your perspective back again on this one. But there's potentially an opportunity for a shift towards more generalist type skill sets. And to your point, we always say, we hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. What we've done for a long time within SDLC is govern it so that we could protect the integrity of the outcomes with the rules, because the mundane boilerplate type activities were the most time consuming if we keep it light. And so with Gen AI, we can elevate the voices across the stovepipe aspect of those skill sets for each of the phases. Each one has different personas, but there's a little bit for opportunity of a cross-hybrid training between the different phases, so that we can help each other accelerate through the SDLC phases and achieve that time phase compression as we think about this. So I guess my question back to you, because I know you lead our internal engineering teams within PwC. What aspect of that do you see kind of play out with our engineers? Are they getting curious about some of those edge activities that they could contribute to, or potentially propose better alternatives so that it can benefit everyone at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think like here's another good example. Like engineers keen on requirements, having the right level of detail before they start to develop a feature. Complaints about product managers or project managers not getting them enough detail in the backlogs to be able to effectively write code.
You're telling me those excuses are going away? My career is in danger.
No, but it's getting easier.
Okay.
Right? Like
we're just automating your career.
Right. But yeah, just in terms of how you can use generative AI too to help generate the product features in the backlog with the acceptance criteria. You can give it context with a few examples, and so I would say as a product manager, project manager too, like or BA even, right? You're running out of less excuses on how quickly you can get those things curated in the backlog, especially when those tools are becoming prominent too. Like if you look at things in Jira, or you look about creating your own custom extensions in ADO, or whatever your backlog of choices. Like more of those tools are becoming more prominent too, and I think that's been appreciated by the engineering teams too. Also the testing teams. In terms of like what it is that we can actually get curated in the backlog to get the development team started.
I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Osama, I think that's a place where you guys have been investing. So let's come back to that one in 1 second. I do want to unpack one other thing on this topic. Is like when we engage in this topic internally and with stakeholders, right? They're usually looking for the metric that they should have their eye on as their teams start to adopt the technology, right? They say things like, should I be measuring the team's velocity, right? Should I be somehow measuring code consistency, right? Should I be looking for the team to leverage this technology to improve the performance of their given code, right? And so I guess I would ask, and maybe Scott, maybe you want to kick us off on this one, like what are the metrics as teams start to adopt the technology? Is there a metric that they should really look at to say, yeah, we're being successful, or no, that we're not being successful?
I mean, one of the reasons to build high-performing teams and establish sort of that foundational model is so that you can measure things like velocity and quality, right? And I don't think the metrics change in that sense. You still want to measure velocity and quality. You still want to know that your teams, ultimately what you're really measuring is how much value they produce, right?
Yeah.
Like what is the productivity that's actually coming out of that team? And of course, if they have good adoption of the tools and the tools are actually helpful, then they're going to have higher velocity and they're going to have higher quality. But it's really important to make sure that, again, that it's the team is producing that output, that outcome, not the tool, right? So they're using the tools as part of making themselves better or helping themselves perform better. So in the case of, for example, the product manager that is maybe used to write kind of mediocre user stories and leave engineers hanging a little bit on what the outcome's supposed to be, that product manager can now, instead of spending their time slogging through Jira writing stories, can pay attention to the value that they're prioritizing in the backlog, right? So they can spend their time on something that creates more valuable velocity, more valuable quality, right? The engineers have the same thing, right? They have to, once they pick up a story to work on, they've got to really be focused on how fast can they get the value on that. And if the right ones are prioritized and the right definitions are given, they're going to have higher quality, right? So like it just cascades down through the system of everybody being augmented with tools that make them able to focus on the more important things. So the metrics are still the same, but the ability to focus on them becomes the priority instead of what I think happens right now is people focus a lot on mundane tasks because those are the things that take up all the time.
Yeah, I like that. So I want to go back to the SDLC one, Osama. I know you've spent a lot of time on this with your team, and it ties in with what we're talking about here, but just that idea of being faster, particularly in the planning phase, which is when we're breaking down the product definition, when we're doing the translation to epics and stories, and ultimately we're prioritizing that. Like you guys are always looking to do that better and faster, particularly on behalf of customers that you're working with. Love to get your perspective on like what you're seeing there, like what you guys are doing, maybe at some level that you can share. I know that some of that it might be proprietary. And what do you think's coming? Like what's the next thing?
Oh, I'm excited about the unknown about what's coming, but we'll park that for a second.
Quantum.
Yeah. If we focus I'm not sure where everybody sits in the room between engineers. Maybe if I can see a show of hands, engineers versus project managers versus maybe solutioning folks and architects. Engineers, who's an engineer here, all right? Okay, half. Project managers, okay, awesome, thank you for coming. Testers, more testing passion, okay, cool. Architects, everybody? Now we can all be, by the way.
Aspiring, yeah.
Enabled by Gen AI. So I think if we just channel and I'll just maybe focus on the engineer persona for a second. If we focus on what frustrates us the most, right, it's getting to do what we love the most sooner. Code. Build stuff. See the outcomes. And what we're seeing with Gen AI is an opportunity to compress and accelerate a lot of the other phases. And it doesn't mean that those other personas go away. It just means that we have an opportunity to apply the knowledge and the opportunity from going faster and compressing it to deliver that value sooner to our clients. Frankly, the disruption in the market is going to be on how can you deliver more value faster to your customers. And what we're doing through tooling is, and I'm sure some of you are already dabbling with it in your own ways, and there's a lot of nice public projects. I can speak to you offline about that. But we have also built in our flexible plugin foundation around how do we tailor the requirements phase, the planning phase, so that we're actually prompting what we call chat PWC, which is akin to chat GPT, because we're super creative in that way, to helping us to extend it so that it can help us accelerate through those boilerplate type phases in terms of defining the product features, the epics, writing the user stories, and checking them. And I think what that changes in terms of the other personas is an opportunity to actually, instead of spending the time writing it, now we're able to apply our experience and knowledge, learn faster, and improve on the quality of those handoffs between the phases to the engineers so that they could do what they love doing most faster. And also they have the opportunity with tools like Code Whisperer and others to kind of keep that going faster. So our clients are also researching and looking into these opportunities. Data privacy, compliance, and integrity is an issue, right? Security in the cloud is an issue. So there are ways to have our clients have their own sandboxes so that because the sooner they can get their fingers on it and dabble with it, play with it, the sooner the aha moments start to unlock in terms of how does this apply to them and how they they just make hay with what's possible here. Now, where is it going? Maybe an unfair question at this point, because to keep some of our ideas relevant, I went and looked into the latest state of tooling out there and all these things, and it's just changing rapidly, so rapidly that this conversation may be irrelevant or outdated in a couple of weeks. So just keep an open mind, try things sooner, don't wait till the end, because kind of taking that journey, being part of it is going to be key to everyone's success here.
Yeah, I think the pace of change is interesting too. It's like I got a co-pilot here, a co-pilot there, a co-pilot here, a co-pilot everywhere. So like which one do you use in which part of the SDLC? And I think to like your point around the tooling, I think we find our clients also trying to figure out like, how do I create a consistent experience across the SDLC with the tooling, just given like there's so many different tools coming online. And so like for us on our Chat PwC application, which came out of the AI Factory too, in terms of how we're trying to drive transformation across our 75,000 people in the US, 300,000 people globally, engineering, non-engineering teams. We've had to take patterns too, where we can take that interface to expose it through the different IDEs, but also as extensions or plugins into ADO to Jira, things like that, to try and drive more of a consistent experience. Not to say that maybe that's not the thing at the end of the day, but I think it is hard too, because you get a lot of different tooling that provides different levels of accuracy and consistency. And so like, how do you solve across that? And I think that's been one of the harder challenges too. It's like everyone's pumping out tools. Which tool do I use for what job? And so kind of also creating an abstraction layer on top to kind of help manage all the tooling on the back end, but at least give everyone kind of a consistent experience to the extent you can.
That's awesome.
I think there's an interesting thing that's popping into my head as you're talking, right? Like if you think about the concept of tech debt, right? Like if things are changing so fast, right? Like there's a new, better tool, there's a better widget every other week, seems like. If you were at this conference, there was a better widget every 5 minutes.
Every session.
Right? So like they're just stacking up so fast. The idea that what you built yesterday is the answer is probably wrong, right? You probably have to be ready to take on the next new tool on the next time you have to write a piece of code, or the next time you go to generate your user stories. There's probably a better way to do it than there was the way you did it last week.
Yep.
So it's like the idea of letting yourself sit stagnant in something for ages, for eons, which is the history of IT in the world, is like, let's build it once and then run it until it literally falls over. Right? You can't do that anymore, right? You can't think like that. You have to think about a continuous evolution of the products that you build, the applications that you have in your enterprise, the tools that you're using to get things done. And that's not just an engineering thing, right? That's for all aspects of how your business operates. So it's a pretty impactful thing on our clients. I know the topic here is mostly SDLC, but that concept scales out to every system and every application that we build.
Yeah, you beat me to the good question there. I mean, really, we could have a whole separate session just on Agile and what the future of Agile looks like, which is tightly coupled with how we bring products to life. And I think Agile was we defined a lot of that. The principles are about how we manage changing priorities, but it's also becoming very relevant as we're changing underlying technologies. And typically, we would say that historically about. Maybe we went from Python to Java, or we went from this stack to that stack. But in this case, we went from this tool to that tool, right? That's around development. Sorry, we'll digress on that one. But go ahead.
Yeah, maybe one more point to add on that, because like
passionate.
Yeah, you're kind of getting into like transformation now, like code transformation, in the sense of there's a lot of opportunity too going from one system to another system. I know, like we've been helping. I know there's been multiple sessions here at re:Invent talking about the Java version upgrades and all that stuff, and that's a great example. Yep. But also like if you're moving off of one legacy platform onto like your next generation platform, using Gen AI to help with the code conversions across that too. Like even if I won't mention the specific data platforms, but from moving from one data platform to another, and
now you're talking about language.
Right, right, and now you can do SQL transformation from that old platform to the new platform, and how you can optimize that, and to help kind of accelerate your journey in terms of how you're moving across these different technology stacks, I think it's another opportunity as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stay with you on this one, Jake. This is one that I know in over dinner and drinks conversation we've talked about. But every time we talk about this topic, and someone brings up testing, right?
Yes.
It's always part of the SDLC conversation. Tail end to build, in the middle of build, shift it left, whatever it is, right? There's a couple things I always hear. So I just wrote down what I hear from our teams, from each other, right? We talk about synthetic data generation. That's always one of the topics that we talk about. We talk about how that helps us, cover the edge cases. We talk about automating test case generation, right? We talk about, we even had one of our leaders this week talk to me about how they're using AI to write the code necessary to execute the test cases using the synthetic data that they generated, right? So it's like you're just going further down the rabbit hole. So where does that land with you? Having code that operates the way we want it to, check all the testing boxes, it's critical. What do you see the opportunity and the risk around that?
Yeah, I think the synthetic data generation is an interesting one. Like, if you were to look at like traditional machine learning, right? I'm curating all these data sets to, do supervised machine learning. Like there's synthetic data generation that's been done there in the past, a ton of papers on it. But then also like even if you're not fine tuning an LLM, you still need good test validation sets to make sure that these things can support the wide variety of questions that you're going to ask it. For example, like, we rolled out a multi-doc Q&A capability. Lot of different iterations on that already as we've been rolling out, across, tens of thousands of people. And it's just like, well, we didn't think about that scenario. We didn't think about this scenario. It's like, well, how do I generate, these data sets to help with testing validation when you're doing, multi-document Q&A, multi-document summarization, multi-document comparison. Like I don't know all the permutations of the types of documents, the data that's in those documents, and the types of questions that can come from that. So I think synthetic data generation can help in some of those cases, but I wouldn't say like it's a silver bullet for all that stuff either. Like you still need to, we work with vendors too to help, mechanical Turk style. Like we still need large pools of data in certain domain areas to help us kind of test and validate. We're trying to pull information from our other internal systems to curate all these things. So it's been an interesting journey too, just to see like, I still need all this data. May not be fine tuning an LLM. We're not pre-training an LLM in the sense of like trying to create our own, but like I still need all this test validation sets to really prove these things out, make sure they will actually produce value in production for the end users, and synthetic data generation still kind of being part of that journey.
Yeah, awesome. Any thoughts on that, Scott?
Yeah, I was thinking about how the topic always gets framed in an SDLC. It's sort of discussion is testing is all about like, I made a requirement, I wrote an acceptance criteria for the user story, I wrote some testing to make sure that it did what it was supposed to do. But I think we just recently published it's a blog post, I guess is the best description of it, on our Tech Effect blog on pwc.com that talks about business level testing, like really being able to think about, did the business outcome match what the business was looking for? Because it doesn't really matter if the requirement turned out to be incorrectly articulated, or the acceptance criteria were incorrectly articulated, or the test case was incorrectly generated, you still don't get the business outcome, right? Somewhere along the path, you end up not getting what you were looking for because you forgot what the beginning of the process was. So I think, extend the SDLC all the way back up to what's the actual intent. Like, what was the strategy in the first place that you were trying to achieve? What business outcome were you going after? And how do you make sure that your SDLC delivers that outcome? And I think, a lot of the ways that it's really easy to use generative AI in the process is in those little micro details. But it's, I'm still looking for like, how are we going to get that business validation? How are we going to know that the actual call center agents are going to be able to do their work faster? Or how are we going to know that, whatever the outcome that the business is looking for, how are we going to know we got that?
Awesome. So I'm going to stay with you on the next question. And Osama, I'd love to get your perspective on this one too from the client side. But we talk about adoption of these tools. I mean, we talked about it's changing like crazy, and we have a lot of conversations about clients who want to do this now, and some who are like, whoa, I'm not ready for that, right? As an organization, what trends are we seeing around maybe if it's an industry or a particular persona from a company perspective that you see like really eager and early adopters willing to make early investments versus some who maybe are more laggards? And I think there's something here in line with our experiences around cloud adoption in general that could be analogous. But what are your thoughts?
I think it's interesting. Like cloud adoption has been, I think it's well understood. Certain industries have been all about cloud adoption. Other industries have been really big laggards on that, or really even afraid of it. I think it's interesting because you can skip cloud, right? Like you don't have to adopt the cloud. You can keep doing what you're doing in your data center. You can improve your internal tech stack a little bit. That's kind of optional. I don't think you can skip like generative AI in the SDLC. I don't think it's a choice because you can't skip your developers going to Google and asking it how to write the code. So you can't possibly, even with whatever firewall rules you want to establish, prevent them from using whichever large language model chat function they want to, asking it how to write the code, how to do the different activities.
Keep them off Stack Overflow, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you can't keep them off Stack Overflow. It just doesn't work, right? So there's no way that an organization can just block people from using it. So unlike cloud, where you can say, hey, it's not our strategy, we're not going to do that, you just can't say that here. So because you can't prevent it, I think if you can't beat them, join them, right? Like you sort of have to get into some strategy of what you're going to do. So your teams are going to need the best tools in the market. You're going to want to have some control over which ones they're using so that it's not the Wild West, and so that you have some idea that you have good governance and good hygiene on your processes and your methodology. And I think the word governance always leads people down the no road, right? Like you can't do that, and that's not what it is, right? Governance is giving people the enablement that they need so that they don't have to go somewhere else to use something you don't really want them to use, right? So I just think you have to think about it that way. In this case, it's gonna happen. People are gonna do what you don't want them to do unless you give them a way to do it the right way, the way that you prefer them to do it. So I think our clients that are a little more regulated or otherwise concerned about the adoption of the technology, it's almost like it's more important for them to get out in front of it and figure out how they want it to be used in their operation, their organization. And that's not just an engineering thing. That's like in their business operations and everywhere else. The first thing is like, do you have control over what's going on, or at least knowledge and governance and processes around what's going on?
Yeah, I think for us really too, internally, like, because if you think about like a different phases of maturity, crawl, walk, run, like kind of where you are at in that journey. Like, when we just started off like in the crawling phase around how to scale out generative AI to the firm, it was more so centralization, and we're highly restricting, controlling the capability. But that quickly bursted, I would say, to your point. Like it's like we put a governance structure in place, with the whole governance committee with risk, legal, business leaders, et cetera, like the list goes on. And try to get like our risk framework in place for like what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what do we really need to add on to our existing AI risk framework to cover off on generative AI. And so I think once we got through some of that stuff too, and also we got some architectures and frameworks put in place, now we've federated all that out. So we're training other development teams outside of the core factory internally to be able to use all these tools to create new generative AI solutions, plug them into their applications, and now we've gotten risk and legal and independence and all that stuff comfortable with doing that. But it's kind of phases of maturity that you have to go through too, and you're just getting your arms around it to start with, and then from there, really starting to federate back out to the other teams and the businesses.
I think getting all those people comfortable, we should have a little celebration.
Yes.
That was you quickly breezed over that, but that was.
Yeah, a little known fact maybe for a lot of people in the room is PwC is also a heavily regulated business as an accounting firm. So because of that, we have a lot of structure for ourselves to follow to be able to do any of the things we're talking about up here.
Yeah, and the three concepts that come to mind is, we push people to conform because we want to control and manage the outcome and the input. but yet we know that our best engineers and thinking is from the opinionation that comes with how they see things work best. And of course, there's an opportunity in a spectrum between experienced engineers who can do that easily, and now the leveraging of the Gen AI tools to learn faster. So how do we do all of these without stifling innovation is at heart of all of this. And at least what's encouraging with our clients specifically is that they also are curious. They want to learn more. They're actually going fast, and they're getting inundated with information, so much so that there's a little bit of, if you think of a pool analogy, do you jump into the pool head on, or you dip your toes in and you try to kind of figure things out? But then that's where kind of experimenting, getting those tools in-house, applying them sooner can help with figuring out where in the spectrum you want to be. But then for at the end of it, learning is what's going to help, all of us advance to, where we think we're going to be in 12 months, 24 months, or in the future.
Well, let's jump in right there. I'll wrap it up. We've covered a host of topics, and any one of these could probably be its own session. But we talked about how fast things are moving. We're talking about being inundated. I want to give you an opportunity to be a little bit of a fortune teller, a little bit of a visionary, if you can. Given how fast things are moving, right? Where do you see things in the next several months specific to the SDLC, right? And think about our audience, like, what do they need to be thinking about both optimistically and what do they need to be concerned about? You can answer any part of that you want. We'll just go through, and Osama, since you ended that, if you'll jump in.
Okay.
Scott and Jake.
Sure. I think one of the key things is trust. Like, how do you trust that what you're using and getting outputted is something that you can depend on? And not so much where there's a human in the loop, but more so when there's no human in the loop. So for example, if you're gonna go get a prescription and Gen AI is telling you what prescription you're gonna take and it's gonna be fine for you, are you going to do it 12 months from now? Are you gonna trust that that's the right thing for you? So trust is an issue, but that's what we're gonna be working on and improving on, and what we're gonna see in the industry in general is the rate of hallucinations is going to decline. The models are going to get better at doing these recommendations, and eventually the trust circle is going to complete in terms of, depending on different organizations' level of comfort and confidence, what they're going to apply and what they're going to wait longer for. So that's kind of my 2 cents on this.
He says as he gets out and jumps in his self-driving car.
Right.
Trust.
I'm constantly testing it, especially around cliffs.
I have one of those, the self-driving feature on my car, and it attempted to change lanes into another car that day. So, just saying.
It's not going in the right direction. Maybe that's what we need to be concerned about.
Yeah, don't drive with the self-driving capability through a construction zone. That's my advice. On a highway. So, like this future casting thing, I've always been terrible at, but I think we're in a place in a growth trajectory that's an exponential curve, right? And so, like, I've heard this story a long time ago about like the human brain is linear. It can conceive change at a linear rate. So it understands change, but it understands it at a linear rate, which is, I'm here today, I'm going to be 1 step further tomorrow, I'm going to be 2 steps further the next day, I'm going to be 3 steps further the next day. And in any cycle that's an exponential change, and Moore's law is a classic example of exponential change, the rate of change is, tomorrow I'll be 1 step further, then 2, then 4, then 8, then 16, and now you're moving so fast that you have no idea what's happening, right? And so with AI in general, that journey started in the 50s or around 1960 somewhere, right? And that exponential curve at this point is massively steep, right? Like, just mathematically, it's incredibly steep. Like, a year ago, we didn't know what a generative AI was, most people, right? And suddenly, it's changing the world, right? Mm-hmm. So a year from now, we're definitely going to be in a different place. Totally agree. I hope that place has widespread adoption of the positive capabilities of the generative AI tools in the places where humans have to do work that they probably just shouldn't have to do. Grunt work, repetitive work, things that are boring, that the people don't like to do. And I hope we have, through that, an unlock in creativity of what people actually get to do, which means if we think about what those creative people are going to come up with, it's going to be the next iPhone or the next Tesla or the next whatever, right? The next innovation that actually changes something, as opposed to worrying about like the SDLC. Of course it's going to be faster in 12 months. Of course we're going to be better. Of course generative AI is going to be more trustworthy, right? Hopefully in 12 months. But I think the power of what gets unlocked by that exponential curve is on another exponential curve for what the future looks like, right?
That's awesome.
I would layer on to that in the sense of like, we talk about, Code Whisperer and these other tools that are in the IDEs, but what if I can really automate an end-to-end feature development process, right? And you'll see a lot of these agent frameworks, kind of coming back online and accelerating too for, how do I have an agent with the persona of a product manager versus a BA versus a software developer versus a test engineer versus a performance testing engineer, and being able to really get into a broader set of full automation across the SDLC. So it's not just this person using that tool, this other person using this tool. How do you really automate and transform that entire development process? So there's already frameworks coming online. There's already research papers being published around this topic. I wouldn't doubt that if we're sitting on this stage a year from now, that a lot of those things have come to fruition, and now you're looking at a transformed process for how you deliver software, let alone how you're doing drug testing and all these other things that you hear on the industry solutions. And then if you forecast that out, I don't know, we'll say 5 years, you've got all this, what I just talked about was kind of that third phase of maturity where you're really running at full scale, where you've revamped an entire business process through generative AI, through agent frameworks and other capabilities. I'm still curious, I joked around the quantum statement earlier, but they've already been redesigning the transform architecture to work on qubits. And so once that stuff starts to hit mainstream, 5-10 years, whatever that time horizon is, that'll be interesting. I think it's tough to keep pace now, but as data platforms, compute platforms, chips are getting optimized. I don't know if you went to the deep dive sessions here too, where they talk about the details around what they've done with Trainium and Inferentia, and it's amazing to watch that journey. And it just continues to evolve at the pace with the silicon and the chips, let alone the qubits. Where we'll be at 5 to 10 years from now when you've got all these redesigned transformer architectures, whatever other architectures come online with quantum plus generative AI plus who knows what else. I don't know. It'll be, hopefully I'm retired by then.
It will not be boring.
To pick up on Werner's point from this morning, hopefully one of the things that we do for the next 5 years is some sustainability so that there's a place to live. Otherwise, we're going to have to find another planet.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you guys. I just want to say what an honor it is to work with you guys on a regular basis. I know that your time is valuable and sought after here at the conference. So Jake, Usama, Scott, thank you for joining us. I look forward to doing this again next year.
Do it.
I want to thank the audience for hanging out with us and coming on this journey. Appreciate your time. Hope everyone has a wonderful reInvent and safe travels.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.